So it's taken me a while to make another video, even though so much has happened here, because I ran out of space on my hard drive. I've got like 100 gigs plus of content that I've captured during the process of this project and product and business launch. Here I am hanging out in the driveway. So up till now you may have seen a bunch of the other side of the equation, a bunch of the spawn work, a bunch of the beds and the wood chips and the logs and things like that. But this is another aspect and things that I'm just going to be building out a whole bunch of different frames and infrastructure to grow mushrooms out of, as well as I'm going to build a little workshop. I had this trunk that used to be, this is what I'm up to today right now, is turning this trunk here into a makeshift giant toolbox and workbench. So I'm going to make a workbench out of the surface here, but I can still lift this up and put stuff inside of the trunk. So I'm just doing a little bit of MacGyver action here today to give myself a little bit more of a spot to work from that's sort of a permanent fixture. And then I'm also turning a bunch of these skids and free wood into frames and structures that I can use to grow food and mushrooms out of. I just had the thought, I don't know why I hadn't thought about this, but we can also start growing food. I've been just growing mushrooms out of these frames, but this would be a great box to grow a bunch of greens out the side of. And yeah, that just popped in my head. I don't know why I didn't think about that before. But yeah, there it is, new idea. So that's what's up today. This is going to be, I'm going to put some boards all across this so it's an actual surface, and then I'm going to put my clamp and a couple other fixtures and pieces onto to weld with until I get a proper welding table. But that's what's up here today, and there's been a lot of other progress around here. I mean, you've seen us take one entire arborist truck full of wood chips here and do all kinds of crazy things with it that were probably unnecessary in the bigger picture. You've probably seen me doing some tree work, cutting down some trees, inoculating stuff. This was a gigantic drop of logs. So we're doing a lot of work here. We're doing a lot of soil work. We're doing a lot of permaculture, gardening. We're doing a lot of hugelkultures, and more than anything, mycology. We're growing mushrooms, right? But we got a cherry tree over here. We actually have one fruit-bearing tree on the property. We have a mulberry tree. It's sort of been neglected for years. I don't even remember ever eating mulberries growing up, and I lived here for a long time. So it's kind of been like under the radar, but we do have some edible fruits here. This is going to be a cherry. This is going to be a bed right here. And at the end, we're going to put some lilac bushes because they smell nice and look nice, and it's a beautiful thing. But then some sort of vegetable gardens through there. I'm not sure what. We've got hugelkultures all this way out and around. All of this has got mycelium inoculated underneath. This is a pretty thick layer of wood chips and straw and hay, wood chips and straw, and various different types of mycelium. Primarily wine caps are the ones we're starting underneath our beds, but we're going with an organic approach and adding different cultures in different places, even along the edge of this garden here as we install all these logs. I decided to make this a shiitake area. So we'll see. We're doing some experiments, but it's pretty likely that we're going to continue to see amazing results. We've been astounded so far once or twice by some of the cultures that we've seen pop up and give us really big, beautiful fruits, even though we thought they weren't going to. We're not using a super sterile approach to inoculation here in this operation, and there's a reason behind that. Not to knock anybody who's doing sterile tissue culture and who's got a really sterile grow room lab operation, but I'm a permaculture farmer, and I'm a permaculturist before I am like a mushroom farmer for profit. And so and I'm a mycologist because I love I'm really am mycologist. I don't care so much about just what I can do with the mushrooms. I'm curious about the biology of them, and I understand that these are the longest living species in the planet that have adapted to all different kinds of situations. And I'm not interested in just a super clinical operation. I want to explore and experiment with nature and change various different variables and see how cultures interact. And we're getting some incredibly big mushrooms that way. And, that's, and I think we're going to just have more and more and more and more success here. Nature isn't so isolated. Mushrooms can thrive in isolated conditions that you control really well, but that affects their immune system. You actually, you're going to get a stronger, healthier, more intelligent species if you're going to clone mushrooms. If you're cloning mushrooms that have actually lived in a real ecosystem. There's nothing to compete with inside of a sterile bag, or, well, you might get some trichodermia, but there's really nothing to compete with, and there's not a lot of information coming from the external environment when you're in a super lab situation. So I like exposing our cultures to the real environment so that they have real intelligence and a real immune system, and they don't just become dumb and bored, right? That may sound silly, but there's actually a term called senescence, which is when you clone a mushroom species over and over and over again onto the same substrate, it gets bored and it gives up and it produces less and less yield. So mushrooms, despite being totally different than us, are intelligent beings. Like these guys are not inert. Actually, interestingly enough, mushrooms have more in common with humans than they do with plants. Anyway, that's a topic for another day. But as you can see, this area, if you look at some of our early videos, we tried to inoculate this with pink oyster mushrooms, and the culture was getting a bit unhealthy and bacterial, and I wasn't sure it was going to make it. And so we scrapped all the straw that was in that and the wood chips, and we just used it in a hugelkultur. Then we cleaned the area, and we actually didn't really clean it that much. I left it, I sprayed it down with water, and I left it in the sun and the air for a day. That's about it. That's enough to kill bacteria. And then I re-inoculated this with blue oyster mushroom. Actually, we cut some of our first 2 test buckets of blue oyster. We cut some pieces out of them, and we stuffed them in here, and we added some mushrooms from here and there, and a couple more spawn bags from our supplier, and we did a couple different things here just to bring this culture to life. And that's sort of that's my general direction with this channel, and what I like. If there's a principle or a concept that I want to share here with people, it is the principle of working with nature instead of against it. Now, there are plenty of elements and aspects of nature that can work to your detriment depending upon what your objective is. As part of the environment, because we're a part of the environment. We're not separate from our environment, right? I want people to really understand that that permaculture is a practice of living in harmony with nature, and looking and listening and hearing and feeling and trusting and understanding how things actually really, really work. And there's so many components to life. There's so many different overlapping and intersecting variables that people do not take into account. And that's a really challenging thing to do, right? It really is a hard thing to do. But it's worthwhile to think deeply and to think deep and wide and far. And that's, to me, what permaculture is. So there's a lot of other cool channels out there that actually I owe a great debt of gratitude to. Great debt of gratitude. I'm a couple of beers deep, sorry. Anyway, there's a couple of really awesome channels out there that have inspired me, and I'm super happy for them. But I saw a trend. I saw a trend in the theme of people doing things a certain way that was working for them and making the money and is awesome. And then but I thought I want to do something unique and artistic and creative that's a little bit outside of the box, a little bit outside of the lab. And also I want to do some things that other mycologists and mushroom farmers look at and be like, holy crap, why didn't I think of that? Like I want to get really, really big and crazy and interesting results here. And so the tried and true methods that other farmers are showing us are wonderful. And I'm building upon that and my knowledge of mycology and permaculture and life in the cosmos to do some really cool experiments and to show people that that either don't know already about this world of mycology, some really interesting stuff, but also to show some of the people, some of those mycologists and farmers out there that are really that are experienced and knowledgeable. I want to make them go wow. I want to make Paul Stamets and people like that go wow. I want to reach out to those people and just show them some pictures and some videos of our gardens and and hear what they have to say, because they're the ones that inspired me to start doing this. So anyway, one love, everybody, from the garden. Take care. Hope you're having a wonderful summer. Hit us up if you want to try some of our delicious mushrooms and mushroom jerky and soon to be tinctures and various different types of medicine from the garden.